about bootcamp programs in general. My name is Zsolt Nagy. I'm an engineering manager right now, but I have a background of more than 10 years as an individual contributor in programming languages like JavaScript, even Java, before that PHP, and some logic and functional programming languages as well. And right now I'm a mentor and coach as well in the Quick Start Bootcamp program, where we take students from zero to basically job ready within a limited time span. So it's like about like 26 weeks or so. But if you get stuck, and you know, if a student gets stuck, in that case, you know, life happens sometimes. And in this case, in some cases, we move a few students from one cohort to another after pausing a membership for like 5-6 weeks. So this can mean that it's not always 26 weeks once the graduation happens, but sometimes like 32, sometimes like 38, and so on. So a lot of things can happen, of course. I have a tech blog on zsoltnagy.eu where you can read about maintainable JavaScript, first of all, and everything a beginner web developer faces when leveling up. That's one of my tech blogs. The other tech blog that I have is on devcareermastery.com. So if zsoltnagy.eu is about tech, then devcareermastery.com is about software development careers in general. So this means that you might be blocked because you seem to be competent, but no one is noticing you, right? We deal with these problems, and we talk about how to really get noticed, get promoted, and if you would like to, for example, go on freelancing, how to get started with freelancing, or how to start building a small business where other people start working with you. So there, these topics are going to be covered in the future as well, and basically soft skill building. This is because tech skills and soft skills go hand in hand. In an interview, you know, if you go to a job interview, then oftentimes it happens that it's not just the tech skills that matter, but also whether people like you. And if people like you, which means that you fit in the company culture that you're interviewing for, then it means to you that basically you increase your chances of getting hired by several magnitudes. So it's like a really important thing to deal with soft skills, not only with tech skills. And we also practice that. So we also practice behavioral interviews in the bootcamp, by the way. So these are going to be the topics for today. So the title is Challenges Self-Taught Developers Are Facing. So that's basically the first one, the first part of the learning web of the bootcamp. Our bootcamp program is really beneficial, and afterwards, so after we check out what challenges self-taught developers are facing, then we talk about motivation versus willpower, what level of motivation you need, and what kind of willpower, what is willpower, how you can use willpower as a resource, and how you can save willpower to make sure that you move forward in a sustainable way. So it's not just a short-term sprint, because there you can deplete all your willpower, but also in the long run, because it might take like half a year, it might take 1 year until you become a web developer, who knows. For some people it takes like a few months only, but you know, it depends on your life situation and learning capacity and initial skills, of course. Then we will learn about learning how to learn, because this is one of the biggest leverage that you can apply on any bootcamp or any learning activity. First, you learn how to learn properly. You save a lot of time. Because imagine we're learning 26 weeks. You would invest learning for 26 weeks. You would invest 20 hours of your time every single week, and this will mean of how many hours in total. So 26 weeks times 20. This means like 520 hours. If you just learn how to learn 20% more effectively out of these 520 hours, basically it's as if you added 104 extra hours on top of the 520 just by 20%. And you can do this 20% easily, like very easily with proper learning techniques. We will talk about a few of these today as well. Then the next big question is training versus learning. So you might have heard that most professional sports people don't have a teacher, they have a coach or a trainer. There is a reason, because they need training and they don't really need to learn how to drive a NASCAR, for example, fast, or how to run fast, or how to play tennis fast. There is no such thing. Well, there is mental coaching, of course, for sports people, but it's rather training versus learn. In the training versus learning question, we will see why training is a lot more important than just learning. Then we will get to the types of boot camps. So what kind of boot camps you can find, on some online, some live. We will see the benefits and drawbacks of that. And we will also talk about how the right bootcamp can help you. Let's start with the first one. So the challenges self-taught developers are facing. So in here, if you think about a situation of someone who, for example, went to university or college and learned, for example, art history or something completely different, or you had a day job, but you don't really want to do this anymore because, for example, you're fed up with driving for Uber or Lyft. You would prefer developing the software of Uber or Lyft. So in what situation are you right now in this case? First thing is, there is no track record. You know, no one knows about what you did in software development simply because you haven't done anything yet. There is no confidence. Like, you don't know what you're getting into, right? At this situation, because there are a lot of unknowns. So how hard is it gonna be to learn software development? How is it gonna be something easy? You know, there are a lot of hesitations. So confidence, it's usually a problem. Skill-wise, you know, initially you start learning about software, you know, you watch some videos, check out some articles, and there is this coding thing, like, oh, what is going on? So it's so hard to understand it. Then, of course, the unknowns that I already mentioned, it's also a relatively hard thing, because if someone doesn't know what needs to happen to get to the other side, you know, and be hireable, it's the reason why it's frustrating is that the unknowns are outside our scope of influence. And there is nothing worse than moving forward, not knowing whether what we're doing is moving us to the right direction or a bad direction, right? So with these unknowns, it's important to follow a path, follow a trajectory that someone who has succeeded has laid out for you. And then the last one, false expectations, because it's very easy to have this attitude like, yeah, we can do it. So it's like, you know, anyone can do anything if you really want to, right? And this is not true. For example, I will never become a swimming Olympic champion. I know that. So it's 100%. Now, coding and software development is not as hard as becoming an Olympic champion in swimming, for example. But there is a minimum threshold when bootcamps become relevant. So if, for example, there might be a life situation for someone who, imagine that you have read a lot of books, like someone has read a lot of books and loves literature, loves art. At the same time, when let's say you have 25% tax on something, and the amount is $150,000, or let it be like $100,000 and or $80,000 and 15% tax, for example, or 25% tax, then what is the 25% of 80,000? And you know, if it's a huge difficulty calculating this, that might be an indication that if you feel pain calculating this number, not because of the loss of money, but because of the arithmetic calculations, so the number crunching with 80,000, 1/4, or 25%, then this is an indication that you might need to learn and train this skill first. So train the skill of solving problems and not getting pain, physical pain. It's very much like going to the gym and working out with weights, for example. Because if you go to the gym and start lifting, let's say, I don't know what measurements in the United States, like kilograms, it might be relevant, or pounds, I don't know, like 30 kilograms of weight, it's like whatever, like 50 pounds, 60 pounds, and you have no skill yet, you have no muscles, or not trained for lifting that weight, then you will obviously feel pain. Same thing happens with programming. The exact same thing is just a mind-related pain. And in fact, when doing this activity, like thinking continuously and solving problems in real life, a lot of sugar is lost in the system. So this means that basically some sweets and sugar sometimes enhance mental abilities, thinking in the short run because of that, because these processes require a lot of processing power and a lot of fuel. That can be sugar, that can be some other, either carbohydrates or something else. So this means that we need to get used to this. And there are some ways. Next week there is going to be a webinar, by the way, on how to learn programming by playing. I will show you a couple of cool games where you can have fun and you can develop this skill at the same time, because I haven't basically heard anyone, like any professional, for example, esports player like StarCraft, or even back in the days when I was playing, like there was StarCraft as well, but there was Quake, all these shooters and so on. I haven't seen anyone who complained that, oh, I hate this game so much. No, people were addicted, like a lot of people were addicted to playing these games. And we would like to leverage the same thing, working on the thinking ability, the problem-solving skills. So developing your problem-solving skills and reducing the pain by playing relatively addictive games. So it's not that addictive that it would be dangerous for you, for your life, but it's like a game, a type of game that you really, that you can really find some fun, for example, half an hour a day. And that's gonna move you forward towards your goals. Let's see what this motivation versus willpower thing is. So when it comes to motivation, it's a very broad topic. I mean, I can understand that there are a lot of content creators, a lot of authors who create motivational videos. And these motivational videos are like, they pump you up for a short period of time. Now, the problem is that if you have to watch, for example, 1 hour of motivational videos just to go to the gym, then there is a problem, because that hour could be spent working out, right? And then you would have 1 hour more in your life. Relying on motivation too much is basically a problem that will keep your willpower quite low. Because if you need this motivational fuel continuously, then the problem is going to be that whenever just life happens, so there is something that, an event that you couldn't foresee, you will be thrown off track completely, and this may easily force people to give up. So for this reason, there is this notion of willpower. So what is willpower? Why is it important? So willpower is basically something, it's like a battery, and this battery can be depleted. But the good news is that this battery can be recharged as well. So in the bootcamp, so one example, headspace.com, it's a meditation app. There is also Calm, there is also One Giant Mind, so One Giant Mind for mantra meditation. And this is important. This is important because as you're trying to go through hurdles, your willpower will be lower and lower and lower. And eventually, if you just listen to like a meditation track like this is like emptying your mind, decluttering, and making sure that tomorrow, the day after, and so on, you will have the same amount of willpower, if not more, available to you. So there is another great one, insight timer. So insight timer, this is something that helps you really focus, and also not focusing is like rather one giant mind with the mantra meditation, but with the mindfulness meditation also to relax, recharge, and then continue next time. So keep on doing your hobbies, keep on doing your sports, everything else. These are all important. But make sure that your path is sustainable. So eat when you need to eat, sleep when you need to sleep. A very common problem with bootcamp students, by the way, is that they would like to complete a lot of things today as if there was no tomorrow. And then maybe I can like cut down on sleep. So instead of 8 hours, I will sleep 6 hours. But no, don't do that. Do your 7 or 8 hours of sleep, because then if you sleep 6 hours, then tomorrow there is a chance that you will not be usable. Like your mind will not be that way usable. Your willpower will be really low. So throughout the bootcamp, we will make sure that we maximize your willpower, so that the 26 weeks, your willpower will be at maximum. And we're not going to rely on these hurdles that every single day it will be a chore, you know, but we will rather make sure that you will start liking what you do. And if you find the beauty in programming and software development, this is when the really cool thing happens, because the same activity will require less and less and less and less willpower every single time you go through a hurdle. And this will mean to you that eventually programming will be like a hobby, like something that you want to do anyway. And by the way, money-wise, this is one of the best things that you can do, because first of all, your job is not in danger of getting eliminated by robots, and it's gonna be for the long run. You can make very good salaries. Just look at what is this? There is payscale.com, and there is levels.fyi. That's what I wanted to demo. By the way, this is not something where I will tell you sign up and you will get the same salaries. No way. It's like there is the top 0.5%. So it's like a top of the top are gonna get to Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, so these FANG companies. It is possible to practice for these interviews. It's not rocket science. And then it is possible to get like total compensation of like above $100,000. But the reality is, for example, you type something like Glassdoor on a pay scale and junior web developer, and let's see a place like Texas. So web developer salary in Dallas, Texas pay scale. And you see that with some experience, you will see a median, and there are salaries on either end. Oh, this is interesting that I have to sign up for this. That's really weird. Let's see another one. Houston, Texas. But you see the numbers anyway, like 59,000, 60,000, that's a median. What I just want to show, maybe I'll show the images, like a distribution about how you can think about this. So salary distribution. And then you see like a low end, an average, and a high end. Basically, that's something that would be helpful. But we'll see that relatively soon as well. So maybe I'll stop searching for a proper graph, or just log into PayScale. Who knows? That could also work. So let's see the Dallas, for example, and I might just find if I have, there is a login. There you go. And I'll just connect with Facebook. I don't mind, actually. They will find my data. App not set up. Okay. Well, in that case, that will not work. Anyway, you see a distribution in the background. So for example, account manager in Denver, Colorado, 64,000. And then, for example, the left part is like 35,000, the top part is like 80,000. So you have these types of distributions. And well, this is a good job to have. And learning by playing, it's something as well that that's basically a luxury. So next time you will see a couple of exercises where you can develop your skills. One is, by the way, this Puzzle Baron. So logic.puzzlebaron.com. Check it out, and if you start playing with it next week, you will have some experience about how this went. It's like relatively good logic puzzles. You can start with very simple ones, and then you will go to the more complicated ones. So start a new puzzle. There you go. So logic.puzzlebaron.com. And then you see, you can select how complicated the puzzle should be and how long or how big. And then you will have some story, you will have some clues. I would like to start the puzzle. So you will have some clues as well, and you will have to solve it, basically. So you see, like, for example, you have these clues like Nico's viral video is Happy Hermits. So Happy Hermits is here, and it's Nico's video, so Nico has the Happy Hermits. And then you will need to just solve this puzzle, like whose video is which one, how many views they had, and so on. So it's a relatively simple one. We won't finish it because it's not today's topic, but I'm just telling you that through these games, your experience will become more and more addictive. So motivation versus willpower, that was our previous topic. Make sure that you don't rely on motivation too much, because in the long run, your willpower will decrease. Make sure that you like what you're doing with practice, and don't get distracted if you need to get started somehow, because sooner or later you will just, you will need less and less and less willpower. And this is the sweet spot. You will develop some habits that are gonna work for you. Learning how to learn. So you can see these two types of thinking, focused and diffuse thinking. And this is a very important topic. And if you understand just that, you can save yourself a lot of headache, even if you do self-paced web development studies just by yourself, which means that if you really master this, technically you will not need a bootcamp. It's so interesting that if you can really master it. The number one benefit of a software development bootcamp is that people tend to get stuck at this process between like focus and diffuse thinking, and then they come with let's say 5 hours invested into a website like HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, whatever else, and after these 5 hours, what happens is they show me the code, and I tell the students how to unblock themselves. So this is the number one value of the bootcamp, in my opinion, because if you focus on a problem and you are in a box where you don't find the solution to the problem, then you will never advance. You will get frustrated after a while that you cannot solve the problem. For example, your website doesn't look like what you imagined it to be. And you're spending hours and hours and hours researching, tweaking, and so on, but you cannot solve the problem. Then comes the instructor. And the instructor says, listen, with these tools, it's not possible to solve this problem. However, think back to when you learned the second topic, and with this second topic, it's gonna be super easy to solve it. So just let it go, delete your code, delete your 5 hours of investment. It's very good for you, by the way, that you went through it, because it's gonna be a lesson learned for life. And try out this other idea, and you will solve it within an hour. And let me start helping you. That's one of the contributions that I can make as an instructor to your progress. One example is that there was a student who gave me a website. Like, our first project is creating a business or personal website. And on that website, what happened was it was basically all over the place. You know, we designed for mobile devices, we designed for tablets, we designed for desktop computers, everything at once. And as soon as I started changing the width of the page just fell apart. As soon as I started zooming in and out, the page just fell apart. And I realized that what happened in there was that the student really wanted to use some old school CSS with some relative positioning and some specifying the how many pixels to the top of the current element, the other element should be, how many pixels we should shift it to the left, and so on. Of course, it's not going to work when you start changing the dimensions or you start zooming. Of course, it's not meant to work. So, and then the student told me that, well, they wanted to just place a tagline, a slogan at the bottom of a carousel image. So there was an image and I wanted to place it at the bottom. But unfortunately in the markup, in the HTML, this tagline was at the top. So I told the student, listen, first you need to create the structure, and then instead of that HTML that you were writing, this CSS, relative positioning, top, left, whatever else, use what we learned and what we played with in the last couple of weeks with Flexbox. There is a great game called Flexbox Zombies. It's free, by the way. You can try it out. And if you use this in Flexbox, everything will fall into place and it's going to be obvious to you how to solve this problem, because this is what Flexbox is for. And then we started designing this Flexbox exercise. And by the end of the lesson, the student had basically the wireframe, well, not the wireframe, basically the structure in there with some basic styles, and all that was left was just to style it properly with the proper image, with the proper font size, and so proper colors and so on, which is super easy work. So this is basically one big advantage. The other big advantage is that there is a process called debugging. A bug is like a defect, a problem, an error, something that doesn't work in the way how it should. And debugging, what happens during debugging is that you just try to find the source of the problem, why that specific problem occurred on the website. And oftentimes bugs appear in a very, very hard to notice way. And well, there was an occasion when a student brought a React application. We also learned React, by the way. React.js is a modern library for creating web applications. And unfortunately, the student didn't grasp the essence of something we call state management. State, it's like, you know, the different data the website would eventually show when you display things on screen. And what we did with this state management is that if you just modify those state variables that are in there and not modify your website, like your HTML, you know, your website structure and data, in that case, you will get a structure, a code structure that is a lot easier to develop, to maintain. And unfortunately, that code was full of well, sometimes the student modified the state, sometimes the student went to the HTML itself and modified the code that was seen on screen. And of course, it didn't work because React was not meant to work this way. So we found and debugged the code of the student. It was a 2-hour-long session. That was the first session when one student just basically came to me with question after question after question. And he was fortunate enough that on that specific session, he was the only one who had questions. So this is why we could afford that 2 hours, by the way. And in 2 hours, basically, we went from a totally broken website to a completely usable one. Basically, it was like a to-do list app. So it's, you know, like fantasy-wise, I know there is todomvc.com online, but it's like outdated 4 years old code. And this student specifically chose basically the to-do app. And you see, like, we did hardcore, not only development, but also planning. So it's like, we had these user stories, like as a smartphone user, I want the to-do list app to be responsive so that I can use it from my cell phone. Well, that's not necessarily the way of user story that product managers write, but at least we got used to writing user stories initially. And then you see like desktop view, mobile view, and so on. And these are screenshots from the application itself. So you see on the desktop, this is what it looked like. On mobile, this is what it looked like, and so on. And if you check, for example, this desktop view, I can zoom in a bit so that you can see it better. Just imagine that you have like this add to do item, you write something in here, you press a button to add an item, you can move the items up and down, you can delete the items, you can edit the items, but when you edit the item, you have to insert it back to the list in the same place. So there is a lot of logic, there is a lot of difficulty in here. And you can also cross out items, by the way, once you finish. So we had this type of application there, and if it was a totally broken application, and in one session, basically the student complained that basically he spent the whole weekend trying to make it work. And the problem was, once again, this focused versus diffuse thinking. So he was focusing on the problem so much that with the way how he focused, of course he couldn't solve the problem, because what we need to do to solve a problem in these situations is just step back a bit, relax, meditate, or drink something, or cook some lunch, or do something that has nothing to do with software development. And the ideas will pop back into your mind. So now that I have talked a lot about like diffuse versus focused thinking, let me show you what's going on in here. So there are great videos, there are great images on that. There is this one. This is a perfect image to show you what's going on. I would like to see the image, but it's a bit harder. Maybe open image in new tab. There you go. So focus versus diffuse thinking. What happens in focused thinking? The activities are in one place. So for example, in this area of your brain, like there are not many connections that are used. This is when you're in the box, trying to solve a problem, and it's really frustrating and it's just not working. So this is focused thinking. You're focusing on, oh, I want to make this work, I want to make it work, but it's not working. Then there is diffuse thinking, when you're not even thinking about solving the problem, but you relax, your mind, you let go of everything, all the troubles, and this is what lets you access other areas of your brain. So you can see that now thoughts bounce back and forth in your whole brain, in this visualization, and to access that capacity, you need to relax. I can prove this to you empirically, so it's not like scientific, but empirically. In a way that just think about before you go to sleep, you're about to go to sleep. What happens? Don't you get the most brilliant ideas from the whole day, oftentimes just before going to sleep? I'm not kidding. A lot of people have a notebook next to their bed that whenever they are about to sleep, they just write down the most brilliant ideas they have and they execute on it the day after. And you need to do the same thing with software development if you get frustrated. If you do this, you know, the intuitive thing is to continue and power through. But what will you do in that case? You will decrease willpower. You will not have willpower anymore. You deplete it and you're done for the day. If you do it every day, you will give up altogether. This is what you need. Once you experience pain, stop, relax. That's why I said do something that lets you do diffuse thinking. And then the ideas will just come. Of course, you need to study. Of course, you need to review certain things so that the ideas exist in your brain somewhere. But diffuse thinking is essential, and switching between the two is essential. Super important. So now you might see what the connection is between motivation and willpower. And now you might also see why I started talking about stuff like meditation. What's the point in meditation, right? Because with meditation, what you do is you switch from focus to diffuse. And while you're in a close to sleep state, you decrease the wavelength, how your brain operates, and you have access to more and more stuff. And also it declutters your mind, so you will be able to do more later. This is one of the key things that you need to learn in the learning how to learn topic, because if you use that, there is a chance that you can come out the other side as a software developer, even without going to a bootcamp. Now the chance is really low, by the way. There is a chance, but the chance is low because of course it's frustrating, and of course it's better to just after your trial and error, know that there is like twice a week a session where you can ask an instructor, and the instructor will just tell you where to focus. And if that idea is not in your brain, even in the diffuse thinking, even then you will get there with the help of the instructor. So that's the help of the bootcamp, by the way. That's the #1 help. Let's see the training versus learning. I told you already in the introduction that professional sports people like sportsmen, sportswomen, and so on don't really have teachers. They have coaches or trainers. This is because learning is just the initial part, so like the initial 10% of the way. You need to learn the basics, of course, but as soon as you learn it, there is still like 90% training that is yet to be done. And this is why a training focused bootcamp is important, or a training focused exercise sheet is important for you, even if it's automated, because just learning is not gonna do much. You will feel like you want to do a lot of videos and watch videos and just see your completion percentage move up from 0% to 100%. And if you don't understand it 100%, no problem, you just continue watching the videos in Netflix style. But the problem with this approach is that if you complete the 100% of the course, the video course, you see a lot of video courses even on YouTube, that just takes you 10% of the way. And a lot of people measure their success on how many courses they completed. And you cannot learn programming just by watching. Even if you're a visual learner, even then, you need to sit down and you need to start solving exercises. You need to start coding. And that's gonna be the training part, and that's where 90% of your efforts come from. And I'm really not kidding, it's like 90% of the effort. We have some courses in our bootcamp, for example, the Advanced CSS course, where I tell our students every single time, every single cohort, please do this course at least 3 times. First, follow the course instructions and just code along with the instructor. Second time, just check the specification and don't follow the instructor, try to do it yourself. And afterwards, verify your solution with the course instructor. For the 3rd time, just see the first chapter or first module of the course, like the initial, what the end result should look like. Don't even care about what sections there are in the course, just complete the whole thing at one go. And once you finish, as if it was a homework, you can verify what you didn't know by revisiting the relevant sections. And this way you would do the same course 3 times. Of course, you can add some variety, you can change the images, you can change the content and so on, but you would do it 3 times. And this is training. Learning would be just going through the course and not even coding. It's not helpful, not that helpful. So that's training versus learning. Forget learning after a while. Of course, learning the basics is important, but don't prioritize learning, prioritize training. And then let's see what types of bootcamps we have, help you find and trigger inspiring ideas that you can act on right away. Because if you start your self-paced studies, there will be a shortage of software developers anyway. there are more software developer jobs created than the amount we can fill with bootcamps and traditional education and self-study combined. So if you do self-study, no problem. One day you might even be an instructor, who knows? So let's see the types of bootcamps. Full-time immersive, it's like, you might have seen these types of bootcamps like 10, 11, 12 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever else. Some are longer actually, but they are the longer full-time immersive bootcamps might not be the English ones. So in some countries, they tend to experiment with other types of bootcamps as well. So the full-time immersive, it's like as if you had a 9-to-5 job, but let's say they might start at 10, at 11, whatever the country expects. And you would code with others, so the training part is going to be there. That's fine. But unfortunately, the problem is that most bootcamps are extremely short. It's like 9 weeks to 11 to 12 weeks. Like, the problem is that there is education, of course, and like training classes, not just the coding part. And it's like you learn something new every single time in the sessions, and then you have to experiment with this during the coding classes. But by the time you almost understand what is going on, you jump to the next topic. And I'm not kidding. I was checking a bootcamp. I'm not going to name the bootcamp, of course, but that specific bootcamp had something like 4.8 or 4.9 stars out of 5 in the ratings, and in trusted ratings. And then the result was that I talked to this person who was a graduate from that bootcamp, and she said to me that that the materials are really good, but she needs to go through the materials once more, because by the time she finished the bootcamp, she felt like she forgot everything. I mean, everything, and she cannot code at all. That was one of my experiences with this type of bootcamp. The other experience was I'm also hiring people, like even to this day. I've been to more than 500 interviews throughout my career as an interviewer, and of course there are some bootcamp graduates who apply for some entry-level jobs, and I give them the first interview. I'm not kidding. One of these bootcamp graduates just brought a like this thin book. Like, this is like a notebook with some ideas, and with relatively large letters, she just wrote some code like, how do I solve the, for example, order currencies in array problem? How do I iterate on an array? What is a for loop? And that student had or graduate had all these in the book, and I gave an exercise that required a bit more than this. And I saw that a student was trying to search for the solution, but I didn't even know how to write a for loop, which is like a very basic thing in any programming language. So once I saw that for that, a student needed help, like this type of help, and couldn't build on top of this. So the way how we build software development code, so programs, it's like playing with bricks, like with Lego, that you have a loop, and inside that loop you have an if-else statement. If this is true, then do something, otherwise you do something else. And you do this for every single element of a list. And then, for example, you create a sum out of all these results, and then you return it, just as if you went to a vending machine, you threw in your coins, and then you got your beverage. So it's the same thing basically, but you built your beverage. So with this, the bootcamp graduate was very far from what was needed, and it was a really, really hard experience. And this is why I don't really believe in the full-time immersive experience, that it's good for everyone. It's good, of course, if you have the right skills already, you just want to sharpen your skills. You don't really have time, you want to get hired as fast as possible. In that case, yes, go for it, choose that. But for that, you already need some skills. What works a bit better for the average software developer candidate is a part-time self-paced learning, which means that you have some courses, but you have some guidance. So when you get stuck and you cannot solve your problems even with diffuse thinking, you go and the instructor helps you. So this is a second type of bootcamp. By the way, we are operating in that in this model. The third one is fully self-paced. Well, it requires some discipline, and it also requires that you know how to search online. You don't waste your time in just watching videos, but you also know what kind of projects to build. You build your projects yourself, and you learn from communities. You can do that as well. So this is all three are working, and depending on your situation, you need to choose the one that makes the most sense to you. With the part-time self-paced, so that's what I know the best, of course, because that's where I am in myself as an instructor. In the part-time self-paced, it's basically a 26 weeks experience. It's not like we rush through the whole material and by the time of week 12 you forget everything. No, you will forget a lot of things by the time of week 8, 9, 10. It's natural. This is how learning goes. But afterwards you bounce back, just like in the stock market. Whenever there is a dip, then there is also an increase afterwards. The human mind works in the same way. There are peaks and there are dips, and what's important is that the trajectory goes upwards. So this is what's really needed. How can the right bootcamp help you? As we mentioned, problem solving is like a muscle. It's a working out in the gym and lifting the heavy weights. It's not going to work that you're not going to lift the heavy weights immediately. And once you get blocked, as I said, many students spend hours or days to fix the problem, but they don't see what tools are needed to fix the problem, because you cannot solve the problem with or the challenge with the tools that you could that are just not meant to solve it. So this is like a box-based thinking. So you put yourself in a box in these situations and try to attack the problem even more, but this makes you focused even more, which means that you have even less information available to you to solve the problem, which is a recipe for a guaranteed failure in that problem-solving process. Usually after giving up, after this focus process, diffuse thinking starts kicking in, and then you might get some ideas to solve it. But sometimes for some students it might be too late, because if you have decided on giving up, then it's not going to work anymore. This is why, you know, we help students like every 3-4 days at least with a session, an opportunity to come online and ask questions. Or if the session itself doesn't suit your schedule, in that case you submit your questions and then the instructor will answer it on class. So this is basically how the right bootcamp can help you. It works with every bootcamp type, like at least the first two, the immersive, it's obviously because there are instructors in there. The part-time self-paced with guidance, that works as well. The fully self-paced is a bit tricky. It could work if you have some study like buddies, like you pair yourself with someone else, like a study group, like a cohort. And of course, there are some online communities there. Just be careful what kind of communities they are, because if they are two beginners, then the beginner with a higher level of confidence or higher degree of confidence can lead the others into a very bad place. There is this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which says that the more confident person who doesn't know much oftentimes transmits their idea more successfully than the knowledgeable, because the knowledgeable person starts doubting themselves because they know how complex the problem itself is. And this is why if for example, you're confident but not too knowledgeable, oftentimes, you know, your ideas go through more easily. And unfortunately, if someone doesn't know anything but they are super vocal, then they can lead you to the wrong place. Be careful with that. So that was it basically for the main topics. I'm sharing some final examples with you with some project projects that were done, because what I didn't mention is that we're also building portfolios, of course. Exercise, it was written in Python and Django. There is even a registration form. Don't worry about how fast or slow it is, because it's hosted on a free hosting service. It's called Heroku, as you can see it from the URL. And of course it's slow, but you can register, and basically after registering, you can log in and start trading, for example, coins. So it's like, I'm gonna register like Jolt. I'll add an email, for example, this email, password. It has to be a complex password. So characters, numbers, everything, and register. So I'm registering. There you go. Log in. And you see the student did everything basically. So, yeah, now you know what kind of password it is, because it's supposed to be the username, but it's not a problem. I just use this password for the purpose of this bootcamp, because it's a very easily detectable password. All right, logging in, and you see that I got $50,000 to trade, and I have 0 BTC, and I can start like buy, sell. Let me buy, trade amount, like 1 BTC. Let me submit it. It's $8,777. And now I got February 27th. Of course, it's like 3:57 p.m. This is the price, buy, quantity, total, and so on. So you have like an account part. You have these charts. He did all this. Of course, the numbers might not be correct, because he might still be working on the representation. Oh no, actually it's correct, because like portfolio total, I already made $1.16 because of the changes. And you see, like you have this, you have these charts, all this stuff. So it's a very interesting exercise, and the student went through it alone. Almost alone. Of course, I verified it a couple, like every single week, like twice a week, even. But you know, so it's a very good way of working with this. And you see, there are even charts. These are line charts. There could be candlestick and bar charts too. You see how these highs and lows went, and so on. So this was one. The other one that really surprised me as well is basically this website, where you see it's like, of course, it's like a WordPress modified on some level, but you see it's like professional, looks professional, looks all right. So that was one website that I saw. And well, there was a crypto one, and there was also the React application that you saw. So there are many other examples as well that I didn't open this time, but basically there are a lot of options to do this like web development portfolio, and you don't need many projects, you just need a few projects. So our approach is like a full stack web development bootcamp, 20 hours a week. Or less, I would prefer the 20 hours, because of course you maximize your investment with that. Because if you do the 20 hours a week and you have the time for that, then it's easier to acquire more skills and get the supervision that you need. So web development, we talked about it. It's an expanding business, so it's you're gonna have a very good, very solid job with that. And of course, you can just stop the video and just read the slide, like who is the bootcamp for? So you're currently considering a career change, you're an entrepreneur, you're employed, you're graduated, and so on. So you can identify if you belong to these categories, or you might want the bootcamp for another purpose. That works as well. And then job outlook, there you go. This is what I told you about with the pay scale graph, but it required me to log in because I demoed it too often this week, it seems, in the courses. So 67,990, that was like this US News, US Department of Labor says 15% increase from 2016 to 2026. And, you know, these are good numbers, even if there is a market crash. which is, you know, there are fears. Of course, the market is panicking right now because of the virus, but a market crash can happen at any time, not only now. Even then, web developers are very well protected. These are the technologies that we're going to learn. Some of them you heard. Well, there are some substitute technologies like React Angular or Python, Django, and Node. But, well, we do Django, we do React, we do Node.js, we do a lot of stuff basically. And these are the outcomes. So you will create interactive website, you will start building your portfolio, you will develop web applications, either client-side rich web applications like React applications, or server rendered like Python, Django applications. You can do that. There are 2 separate projects for that. And you can also develop APIs, for example, with Node.js. So that's the idea. You have online modules, projects, mentoring, discussions, capstone project at the end. So basically everything is structured. And you have these people looking after you. So these are like academic advisor, you have mentors like me, you have career counseling who basically verify your LinkedIn profile and so on. So that's it basically, a sneak peek into what you will learn. And also you will have a lot of projects that where basically it's mandatory in your interest. So that's it.